A monk once said, did he? Do you know what I mean? He didn't. He didn't say.
Definitely didn't.
Because why would he say this? Or she? Does a monk have to be a man? I think so. Can you be a female monk?
Yeah, a nun.
No, that's different. I don't think a nun is a female monk.
Well, it's the equivalent, isn't it?
Is a nun a female monk?
Yeah.
Yes, a nun is
there
a
you
female
go.
monk.
There you
The
go.
term nun is used to describe a female member of a religious order while monk is... Okay, fair enough. All right, I take it back. Anyway,
Thank
monk,
you.
a dude.
Right.
A dude nun, a male nun said...
I shouldn't have drunk my coffee then. Hello everybody, welcome to Short Fuse. I'm Duncan Roberts and I'm here with Ollie O'Donoghue.
Hello.
Yeah, there you go. Not giving you an introduction this time.
I have to introduce myself.
Oh, I just did introduce you, didn't I?
Yeah, you're supposed to introduce me, which you did.
But I'm not telling you to say hi anymore. I'm giving you the freedom to do what you want. Today we're going to be talking about gaming, which is a subject I think we're eminently more qualified to talk about than dating, don't you think, Ollie?
Yeah, speak for yourself.
Yeah.
But yes. Definitely.
Yeah. And the reason we want to talk about this is because both Ollie and I are enjoyers of video games, but the industry is going through somewhat of a crisis at the moment. Games are still wildly popular, but there's a lot of layoffs in the game industry. There's a lot of kind of pushback on certain mechanics in games. They're getting very expensive. There's lots of loot boxes, that kind of mechanic, always online subscription requirements. And the games kind of community is a very vociferously vocal one. So we thought we would vote on whether we're long, on short, on games. Maybe we need to refine that a little bit more and have a discussion and then see if we've changed our opinions. So, Ollie, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Are you long or short on big name, very expensive games?
Oh, so you have refined it.
I have refined it. Just just
on
made
the
that
fly.
Cool. I just made that cool.
It's a shrewd move because I think both of us are going to be like, well, I quite like games. So,
yeah, so we're long.
Yeah, fair enough.
But like big expensive games, triple A. They'll probably go to quadruple A now.
Well, short.
Okay.
But we can. Last time you didn't really get to say your vote, so
it's not that I didn't get to say it. I just didn't
have a
Well, didn't have a chance because you were talking too much.
Well, it's because I know so much about dating.
True, but you're short on big, expensive, high production value games. Tell me why.
Yeah. I just don't think the value's there, frankly. So as you know, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is the game I've been playing. That was an independent. That was relatively small a little while ago, and I think it now counts as like a big game.
Yeah,
but they seem to follow a very different model to everyone else. In as much as I've bought that, it's the full game.
Yeah,
it works. It's not. It doesn't crash immediately.
Doesn't need a day one patch.
Yeah, exactly. It's just an all round solid game, like the games of yore, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But that's an exception to the point where that's all anyone's talking about. Like it's got amazing ratings because people just can't quite believe that a game they've heard of with a lot of fanfare around it is actually good and it's fine and it's not crashing their system.
And it doesn't require extra DLCs to make it the whole experience. I've been playing Baldur's Gate, which is not the sort of game I would typically play by any stretch of the imagination, but it got such rave reviews and publicity because it was like, this is not an always online game. It's a package. It's like, here's the game, it's done. You've got all the content you want in there. You're not going to have to subscribe to it. You're not going to have to pay loads of money for horse armor and stuff like that. So it's the same deal, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them still will have DLC, but it's not structurally integral to the game. So you just decide not to have that bit, and that's always been the case. All of the best games have done it. It's like, hey, we got this new expansion. It's priced for the amount of content there. You could choose not to buy it if you want. We're not going to rip apart your game. And there are some where, I mean, I'm thinking of some of the strategy games I play. But, and this is where you see how boring I am. There are mods and DLCs there where it adds free stuff to the game in the process, and it's like, well, actually, this is now improved. Like you can now manipulate interest rates, which you couldn't do before. You lucky devil.
How fascinating!
Yeah, exactly. But you could spend £10 and do even more manipulation of interest rates and foreign exchange should you wish. But you've got a little bit of added, there's a little bit of extra juice for you.
Yeah, but I don't know about that. Like I think the whole idea of DLCs and like charging for them is, I don't love it, right? So one of my things with games is, and life in general, is I get a bit caught out by lots of things changing. I'm a person who quite likes things to happen and then that to be that. Like I don't know, maybe that's just in my personality. So if I buy a game, I don't want them to suddenly add something where I feel like I'm missing out and I have to pay more to then get the full experience of the game. Just do another game. And already, when I play games, and I think this is a really important thing, I don't have an awful lot of time on my hands. I get confused. I get overwhelmed with the amount of stuff that there is to do in games these days. I think I've got about 50 hours in Grand Theft Auto 4 of me just logging in over the years, driving around a bit, feeling overwhelmed and then logging out again. I can't get on with it. And there's so much to do. And the games you play were full of menus and spreadsheets. I'm like, I don't have the time to invest in figuring out what this all means. So I'm quite a big fan of just a very simple, quick, I can feel some progress in about half an hour's worth of gaming.
I think there's a difference though, isn't there? Because so the DLC that we're talking about we'll call them the good games, the games that I'm long on. You would need them to do 4 or 5, package them all together, and that would be, Kingdom Come Deliverance 3 or Fallout 4, whatever it is. Or they may not bother for them to work in that model. Or instead, it's an extra 10 hours worth of gaming for a reasonable sum of money, and you get to enjoy the game in a slightly different way. And I think that's good. The example you've given, Grand Theft Auto, is a classic case of one that's just rolling out constant content. So I get that. I used to play that a lot during the pandemic. I think everyone did. It was like one of there were like 2 or 3 things everyone did. One of them was quizzes. It got a bit toxic.
Jackbox.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Quizzes with the family every Friday. Weird kind of check-ins. And games like Grand Theft Auto, where you just hung out with your friends who were driving around town, it got like a massive amount of focus because of that. But they just keep rolling out content, and just crazy content, like things flying around that if you're not going to spend £30, let's say, or the same price as the base game was, to have their bizarre internal currency to buy this super weapon, then there's just no point playing it.
No, because you pay to win.
Yeah, you just get wiped out. It's just absolutely pointless. So that I don't think that's going to die, but I'm short on it because I think it's a bad idea. It's a huge market for it. I mean, the game's massive. People really enjoy it.
We're in a bubble again, we for all of these conversations across the podcast, we're in a certain bubble of our age range and our kind of likes and dislikes. But there is a very strong anti-pay-to-win sentiment, anti-loot box, anti-subscription model sentiment. People enjoy games, and those games that have come out like Kingdom Come Deliverance or Baldur's Gate, where they're just like, here's the package, play the game, done. And they can last you countless hours, are extremely popular, and they get press coverage, etc. Whereas things like, what's the most recent one? Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League or whatever, they bought it out as a live service model and killed it a few months later because nobody liked it. It was dreadful. It was reliant on this subscription model, and there were terrible bugs all over the place because it was completely unfinished. It just incentivizes people to the developers not to finish the game because they think, well, this is just the release and it's just going to go on and on and on and on and on indefinitely. So there's no kind of deadline.
That's the bit that's quite frustrating, and I think is why people are turning away from the big games, is because they're so expensive, first of all. So it's extraordinarily expensive, like £50-70, something like that for a game.
They're thinking, I read something where they're like the big players in the games industry, so the games corpos are hoping that Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out at £100,
I heard
so that
100
everybody
plus.
else can charge £100.
Yeah, 100 plus. That you see a lot of that where a flagship game comes out for £70, and everyone's just like, oh well, okay, now we know. Now we and there's a big part of this. We've talked about it in other podcasts, but fear of missing out is massive in this industry. So if you're like a kid and everyone else is playing the latest Grand Theft Auto update, then you kind of have to too. But like I said, I think the big switch off is that they are so expensive off the bat and often aren't complete.
Yeah.
So even if it's like, hey, this is an alpha, like, well, for £70 it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Alphas used to be free.
There's a big thing in so the games that I play. As I say, I'm playing Baldur's Gate, but generally I like kind of simulation games. I like my driving, my sim racing. I like flying a plane every now and again. There's a pushback against a particular game called Le Mans Ultimate, which is in early access, but they're releasing paid DLCs for it during early access. So the game isn't even complete, and yet they're charging people more for more content while they're developing it. Yeah,
it sends a message. And there are a lot of games. I mean, the amount of DLC grifting that's going on is crazy. So there are games I play. I mean, look, obviously you have the choice where it's just, I don't have to buy that thing, right? And, so, and if the base game is complete, fair enough. Yeah, you don't have to buy it. But where it's like, hey, do you want all of the flags of the countries in your game? That's $3.99. It's like, what? I've paid £70 for this. Yeah, I want to. Of course I do. There's the other part which I find more interesting, perhaps, is a lot of cheaper games, independent games that come out and are often in better condition, but it's neither here nor there, have value injected into them in other ways. So I'm thinking about the modding community. So you can get games that are like £10, and sure, it's not. Do you know? It's not perfect. It's not the best game you'll ever play, but it attracts an incredibly loyal modder community that turn it into an incredibly good game, free of charge. Of course, it's a whole different beast. And there's an interesting calculation in my head over where the true value lies. So the base game might be £10, but actually consumers are placing kind of £9 of that value on the future likelihood that it'll attract a modder database. And you see that a lot in the discussion boards where something, a new game is being heralded, and people in the comments are just like, oh, I can't wait until the modders get hold of this, and they'll turn it into, the AAA game that we dreamed of, not mentioning any specific titles.
Well, there's plenty of games that actually started as mods. So I think Team Fortress 2, for example, was started as a mod. I can't remember off the top of my head a bunch more. There's loads that actually started as mods. One of the games I've played in virtual reality is called Blade and Sorcery, which is this horrific. It's a great game, but it's horrific in its content, where you just chop people up with swords and have sword fights and decapitate them and chop their arms off and stuff like that. And there's blood spurting around everywhere. And it's basically a simulator for people who have anger issues. But one of the most popular mods is a Star Wars one, where you've got lightsabers and you can people's hands off. That's created a whole new game off the back of this one game, and then that might become its own thing, and then that might become its own thing. I mean, mods, again, with me, and this is just my personal opinion, I get overwhelmed. I have to install them. I can't remember what mods I've got installed. This game starts running crap because my computer can't handle it, and I get all confused. I like to stick with the base game, play with it as the developer intended. Otherwise, I get a bit confused because I'm a simple soul.
Yeah, and you have the choice to do that, of course. So that's where, because it's free, if you buy the base game and just play the base game, fair enough.
Yeah.
It's no problem. I think where the value proposition gets skewed really aggressively is where you spend £70 on a game and you're chasing £50 of that value a year, 2 years, 3 years later, and often have to pay more to get it because the base game just isn't there. Yeah. And often it's not that transparent. So let me, I'm not going to name a game, but let's say I play a game where you play as a country, right? And, effectively manage the economy, right? Let's just pretend I play a game like that. Of course I wouldn't. I'm too
exactly.
Cool.
So I'm talking about hacking and slashing people's body parts off. You're talking about interest rates and economic policies.
Yeah, trade Trade tariffs.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, I don't play games that I play like sports games, like Football Manager or Football goal scorer 2025. You know, whatever it is. You know, because I'm cool. But let's assume that I was one of those total nerds that plays these games. Often you'll buy the game and it gives you like 5 countries, but you may not necessarily know who they are, or that you'll be expected to pay £15 to unlock another 5, and then £15 to unlock another 5. And if you knew that going in, would you buy the base game? But you don't know that going in, so you buy the base game, and then because you want to make it worthwhile, you end up buying that DLC, and that's the kind of the bait and switch that I think is turning a lot of people off of mainstream games, which you don't necessarily have in indie games. So you have to try so much harder to win your custom.
And I think there's another thing with like indie games are generally less resource intensive, right? So you don't need, going to the hardware side for a second, you don't need like a super mega computer to run it. Like if we're talking PC games, just for now. But so if I'm playing Papers, Please, you know, which is a game about stamping passports, or the Curse of the Golden Idol, which is like a point and click adventure, they could run on a potato pretty much. So they become much more popular. Whereas these AAA games that have all this budget expended on them look fabulous, but they need a graphics card that costs $2,000 to run them, and let alone the rest of the parts of the PC. And there's an interesting debate going on at the moment where Nvidia's just released the 50 series of GPUs, and they have this thing called multi-frame generation, and they're saying, okay, and it's a wonderful, amazing technology where they can basically quadruple the frame rate through artificial intelligence, creating those extra frames. So you can go from 30 frames to 100 odd, you know, over 100 frames a second, just by AI putting these kind of generated frames in. But then the conversation didn't go, wow, that's an amazing technology, that's really cool. The conversation on the things that I was reading was just, well, that's just encouraging developers to not optimize and to make these things, you know, well, we don't need to optimize our games and make them run well now because NVIDIA will do it for us. So, and then you have to pay quite a lot of money for one part of a computer to run that game.
Well, that optimization piece is really interesting because obviously it's in the news right now because of DeepSeek.
Yeah.
So the fact that DeepSeek wasn't able to access the best chips, but in any case, they had to focus on optimization to make it work, and as a result, they came up with this great product. But what you touch on when you talk about graphic cards is another interesting dynamic at play here, which is the total cost of ownership.
Yeah.
To play a game is skyrocketing. So we talked about the extraordinarily expensive £50, £100 plus goal that the game studios are trying to get to.
Yeah.
You often also have to pay some form of ongoing maintenance, whether that's direct, i.e. subscribed to this specific online capability for the game, or loot boxes or whatever. You know, there's an ongoing cost that's either optional or built in if you want to play online or want to keep playing the game. But you also have that for the games console.
Yeah.
So you have to pay like
and the
£15 a month.
TV or monitor to play it on.
But even just the subscription service to be able to play the online service, you have to give the PlayStation or Xbox their pellet of money per month too, plus the God knows how many hundreds of pounds the new consoles cost. Right, so the total cost of ownership is absolutely crazy. And what I've noticed with, I mean, look, I'm good. You know, PlayStation guys, if you're listening, you know, which you are, don't sue me. But like, I bought a PlayStation 5 close when it came out, and I would say to date it has not been worth it because there haven't been any PlayStation 5 worthy games.
Yeah,
really,
for you.
For me.
Yeah.
For me. But I think that's a common consensus. I think in a lot of the debate right now is there just hasn't been next gen worthy games that made it worth springing for the next gen console, because the studios just can't keep up, and there haven't, you know. So if you look at most of what's on PlayStation's shop, they're old games. I mean, in some cases, like 30, you know, chasing old folks like me. It's like, hey, can you remember playing these single pixel games? We'll do that again, but in exchange for the £600 plus
Do you want some
$15.99
nostalgia in your life? Pay me for it.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly. Pay an extraordinary amount. Pay more than it even cost back then. To access this.
And it's interesting that Sony, there's an interesting dynamic going on where Sony obviously are doing very well with the PlayStation. I think it's quite profitable for them and quite successful, really. But they have started releasing their biggest first-party games on Steam. So God of War, I think, is on Steam. The Last of Us is on Steam. So they're accessible by the PC community. Xbox they're kind of taking a focus away from releasing hardware and making it the subscription model in Game Pass, where it's like the Netflix of gaming, where you can pay a certain amount of money and you can get Game Pass streaming. So you could play that on your phone or on your PC that isn't powerful enough, or even on your virtual reality headset, you can stream Game Pass games. So they're moving away from the hardware, but it's less about having the console wars where you would buy a PS5 and you'd play the exclusives. It was the exclusive games that really made you buy that PS5. Things like Gran Turismo, God of War, whatever. And on Xbox, it was Halo or other stuff. Now, you can play those games on any device you want to. So they're trying to they're expanding their market and relying less on exclusive games for particular pieces of hardware. So that's playing out as we speak. But I think that's a win for everybody. Like I don't have a PlayStation 5, but I can play PlayStation games on my PC. And I don't have an Xbox, but I've got a PC that I can play PC games on. So that's a win for me. I think the more accessibility you have to that content, the better it is for people who want to play those games. And arguably the better it is for those companies because they get more people buying their stuff. I don't know what the investment is to try and port a game from PS5 to PC, but hopefully it's worth it.
Yeah, I suppose the question I don't think there's an answer that we'll get out, over the next 20 minutes on this podcast, but does that inevitably just see the end of the massive investment we've seen in next generation consoles? Because it is easier. Like right now, controller. Broadly speaking, and I think this is the case for a lot of people. They have PC games and controller games, as I would call them in my head. Right, so there are some things that just feel natural playing on a console with a controller, and some things that feel natural clicking, keyboard and mouse on a computer. But now Steam has loads of games that are controller compatible. Yeah. They have the Steam Deck, which you keep telling me to buy. You won't buy it for me, but you keep telling me to buy it, which I think is a bit rude. So what do I need a PlayStation for?
Well,
now
quite. So I can move from my PC to my Steam Deck to my TV, and there are. I talk about rumors all the time, but there are rumors that Valve had the Steam machines, which was essentially a Steam branded Linux computer that you could operate as a games console. Off the back of the Steam Deck success, I think they're looking at releasing a living room console type thing. So you could. It doesn't matter that it's not a PC game or a console game anymore. It's just the place that you're playing it. Is it a strategy game that you need the preciseness of a keyboard and mouse, or a first-person shooter? When you're an esports player, we need that Twitch control of the mouse. Okay, sit at your desk and use that input method and that monitor. If it's just a lazy, I'm going to sit on the couch and swing around a Spider-Man or whatever, I just need a controller. But you're within that same ecosystem, and I think that's what Steam's doing really well. Bringing people into that ecosystem and giving them accessibility to those games wherever they want to play them, without having that kind of exclusivity that means you need to be in a particular place using a particular piece of hardware to play that particular game.
Yeah, and also the games tend to be more readily accessible to the modding community.
Yeah, again, definitely.
In Steam, it's much, much harder to mod a game in place. When you think about that free value that you get from Steam's modding community, it's very difficult to get that for PlayStation and Xbox. There are mods, but I think it's just much harder to build them.
Yeah.
I did a really small amount of research into, because apparently every 4 or 5 years people declare like console gaming dead or PC gaming dead, or mobile. I think it was mobile's going to kill consoles are going to kill the PC, and like all of them exist together. For me, like the value that console gaming has right now is just convenience.
It is convenient.
Like if you were going to put it on, it's convenient. I don't have to worry about, like, to your point, which graphic card I want. Well, I don't have to worry about it, right? I spend this amount of money. In theory, all games should work on it. I remember when I was a kid and I didn't have a particularly good computer, and it was just a roll of the dice.
It
right?
really was. That was like, is this going to work? Is this going to work? Yeah, with my Amiga 500.
Gutting. Yeah, absolutely gutting. You put the game in, and when I was quite young, so I didn't really understand why it wasn't working. I'd found a game really wide, would put it in, it just didn't work.
Yeah.
And now that there are games coming out where if I wanted it not to fry my PC, I'd have to upgrade all sorts of parts or potentially get a new PC. I don't have to worry about that with the PlayStation. But is it worth it when you think about the loss of access to free value through modding? Because I could play, let's say, Fallout 4 on my PC, and there is some crazy stuff. Like, it's a new game entirely.
But modding is quite amazing. A niche activity. I would be. I don't know the percentages. I would assume, and I might be wrong, that modders and people who use mods are quite a small percentage of the gaming community.
I don't think that at all. I think it's massive. Yeah, I think it's massive,
including all the people who play console games and mobile games.
Mobile, I don't think it's as easy to get hold of mods, and consoles it's quite a bit harder.
No, you can't get mods on phones, of course. But like, what I mean is, as a percentage of the entire gaming community, people who play video games in some form, I think, and again, I don't know, that modders and mods being available in games is a relatively small proportion of that.
I would look at it in a slightly different way. I would look at it where mods exist, where it's possible to mod a game. How popular is it?
Yeah.
So because there's no, if we're just saying, there's loads of mobile gamers and they can't access mods, that it doesn't count because they can't access them.
Okay.
But I think where they exist, they're incredibly popular and they're becoming an increasingly important part of the value proposition for a lot of games. I think there are a lot of games that people only buy as a base game. It's like, hey, this is just the foundation I need to then, and I'll install some mods.
Yeah,
and to your point, there are games that fully fledged games now that are just mods of.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know if it is a mod of GTA 4, if that's how it started, but I installed it. It was free with PlayStation, so PlayStation's trying to get at this game of free value, bless them, called Police Simulator.
And it's I don't think that is. Yeah.
It feels like it. It feels like
it's not a mod, but it's a rip-off.
Yeah, right. Close enough. But so you have that part of the equation, right? This is the kind of the damning of consoles. So that part of the equation is it's very difficult to get that free nugget of value that you get on PC.
Yeah,
it exists on PlayStation, Xbox, but just not to the same extent. And there are a lot of games where I think you find it. So Fallout 4 is a good example where there are loads of really, really, really good updates because everyone's desperate for Fallout 5.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a massive topic of conversation. Very popular game. Huge forums dedicated to when's Fallout 5 going to drop?
Especially after the TV show.
Exactly. And there are loads now. There's a lot of publicity around what the modding community is doing in turning Fallout 4 into a completely different game. But
they had
more or less
London,
just for PlayStation.
Fallout London, which was a mod.
Fallout, a massive mod. But even just making the game look good. I mean, some of the mods for Fallout 4 make it look like a next generation game. It's a really old game when you think about it in the grand scheme of things. But it looks absolutely perfect, but only on PC. You can't really get it on PlayStation. So a lot of people are moving over to play on PC because I want access to that mod. Yeah. That's just one side of the equation. The other side of the equation is PlayStation is quite expensive for not much game.
You also don't need to pay that subscription to play online with PCs.
Right.
Yeah.
The total cost of ownership's much. Well, I think getting a good PC that can play Fallout 4 with that level is going to be way, 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 way more expensive than a PlayStation. But you don't have to spend the £15 a month or whatever it is to play the game.
Steam all of this, I'm a bit of a hypocrite because I pay an extortionate amount of money to do my sim racing. which is, a subscription to the actual service. You have to buy the cars, you have to buy the tracks, and I've got all the equipment to sit on there and race. I've got a VR headset that I do it in. But here's the thing, and this is why I think video games are quite important. I often justify that cost by saying, for starters, I think the platform's incredible, and I think the money that I pay actually is worth it, and it gets reinvested in the platform and it keeps getting better. And I think it's a very well-run service. But beyond that, I'm a 42-year-old man. I don't have many hobbies. I do my sim racing. I make kombucha. That's about it. I don't go to the gym. I don't have a golf club membership. I don't do those kind of things that cost quite a lot of money. So that's my hobby, and I see that as worthwhile. So video gaming, it's gone from a niche experience to something which is a worthwhile hobby that people are willing to spend money on. But I think if you're going to spend that money, you almost need to kind of break it down. And I can go, well, per lap that I drive, that's about 50p, which for me is worth it.
Well, it's whatever it costs. I roll the dice. The bit that I think is uncomfortable right now for a lot of people is you're rolling the dice more than perhaps you would do with any other product.
Mm.
So 10 years ago, if you spent £50 on a game, you'd pretty much know what it was you were getting.
Yeah.
Now you don't so much, because it'll be like, well, look, it's a bit rough around the edges now, but we'll update it. And a lot of times they don't. And I think that's the bit that people are uncomfortable with. People spend what they feel comfortable spending. Is it getting too expensive? Presumably not, right? Games are still flying off shelves and people are still buying consoles. So seemingly, economically, it makes sense to a lot of people still. But I think where the pushback is coming is that the value isn't necessarily realized, or it takes longer to realize. That's where most of the complaints are. What I think is interesting for the gaming industry is when new technologies now change it significantly. I mean, we've talked about the use of AI in creating more hyper-personalized gaming environments. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about Fallout 4 again, because it's just a great game and I look forward to Fallout 5. But having something that would generate conversational situations off the back of actions that I've taken in the game would be incredible. I mean, that's basically what made Fallout 3 so great. It's like you would do stuff and everyone would be like, oh, that was awful. Well, I'm not going to talk to you anymore.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, wow, how powerful is this?
Yeah, making it on the fly would be amazing. But, they've released basically an AI companion for you to play with. So it's a bit... So rather than... I think they are working on... And there are examples, especially in Skyrim mods, actually, where you can hook non-playable characters up to a large language model, and it will do that. But they're also releasing assistants who will kind of sit with you and ask you about your game and talk to you about your game as you're playing it, and going, "Oh, why don't you do this?" And do you want me to point this out to you? Because
I don't play online games; it's too stressful.
Well, it's also hyper toxic and hyper competitive. I do my racing, but then I can kind of keep myself to myself in that and just do it myself. I don't rely on anybody. So they're releasing these kind of AI assistants or AI play buddies that can play along with you.
But if that enhances the game for people, great. Again, if it makes it worth it for people. I mean, I'm thinking more about an enrichment within game.
Yeah,
more direct to the storytelling, perhaps, or whatever. I mean, there's also the argument that you could use technology to build games and write games, and dare I say, even mod games. At a lower cost base, so you could just get more done.
But the complexity involved with that it would be phenomenal. Sure, you could have voice lines created by LLMs on the fly, but then to link that into your quests and your ending and all the mechanics that go along with that, surely that would just be enormously complex. Which is why it hasn't been done in any kind of scalable form yet.
Well, even if it's a more advanced decision tree, that's progress, right? Because it feels. I mean, Fallout 3. I know I'm sticking very closely to Fallout in this podcast. It's for me. It was one of the first game I played where I was like, "Wow, this is incredible." Was Fallout 3, where it felt like I guess that's all that matters, is the feeling. It felt like what I was doing had an impact on the world around me.
It was bombing Megaton, wasn't it?
Blowing up Megaton, or letting the ghouls into 10 penny towers, or whatever it was. There are all sorts of, but it felt like it had an impact and people were reacting to it. So even if you make that better, so it's not like, yes, no, oh, you did blow up an entire town of people, that's bad. What was called the karma system in the game. Even if it's just a more nuanced version of that, I mean, that's a big step for a lot of people.
But that's I get it. I think that there's parallels with the kind of the business world here, where you could do some stuff to experiment and have LLMs come up with some of the lines and enhance the decision trees. But as soon as you start scaling that, it becomes infinitely more complex, and you don't know how to make it work across the entire game or build an entire game. But somebody will at some point, and that's when everybody will then follow that model and it will expand. There's a similarity there with the business world, where nobody is sure how to scale it within their entire operation, and somebody will do it off on the side and create a whole new business using it, and that will be the model that they follow. I think there's an interesting parallel there.
It's whether or not you even want to.
Yeah.
Right, that's there. So if it gets too complicated and unrepeatable, I mean, I'm back in games, right? But I guess it's the same for businesses, where if the output is different every time, that becomes incredibly difficult to manage.
Well, there's also
how do you define what good looks like?
There's also a parallel there with No Man's Sky. Do you remember No Man's Sky, the game, where you could visit procedurally generated worlds? And what's it called? The spaceship version of Skyrim and Fallout that they released.
Starfield,
where they procedurally, that's a very difficult word to say, procedurally generated the planets. And everybody was like, well, this is boring, because everything's a little bit different, but it's also kind of the same. And what people really wanted is that handcrafted world that Skyrim and Fallout had, that had total care and attention to all those very small details, and was actually a lot smaller. They don't want this big, wide expanse of generic blandness. So those kind of those handcrafted experiences are a lot more valuable.
Well, no, there was a slightly different. I mean, I found the reception to No Man's Sky fascinating, because it said a lot about humans. It wasn't so much that it felt bland; it just felt purposeless.
Yeah,
because there was no mission or anything like that. It was just like, hey, go and explore.
Just going around. I think there was a number of issues, and it's a very interesting redemption arc, that game, in that they've made it wildly popular now. But when it came out, it was absolutely panned. And I think the purposelessness of it, I think there was an element of the generic. Everything was a kind of a spin-off of the same thing. So all the procedurally generated aliens were just this bit plus this bit plus this bit plus this bit, and
all
after a little while, the space was space, but it just felt. I think it was a number of things, but Starfield definitely suffered from that, where they hadn't handcrafted all of the worlds, and you're coming from something like Skyrim or Fallout, where it was so handcrafted and detailed. Everybody was expecting that. I'm like, what is this? This is dull. I played it for about 2 hours and gave up. I was bored.
Yeah, whether or not. So I with No Man's Sky, I bought into it's awesome, limitless possibilities, and then I'm with everyone else where I was like, well, this is pointless.
Yeah,
I don't know what to do, which says a lot about human psychology, which I think is interesting, and it sounds the same for Starfield, which I haven't played. Whether or not having a more personalized experience where AI is, your character's just more believable in the way that we engage with things in the real world would help, because that's what was missing. So the world around you changed, but really the characters were pretty 2D and toothless and didn't really respond to that changing environment in any meaningful way. Does that change now? Because that's the tricky part, is changing things like dialogue and like cause and effect.
Recording the voice lines. If you have AI to do that for you, you don't need an actor. That's a whole different conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, but even just that, I suppose you would have to, because otherwise you'd have actors. You'd need like a team of 20 people just for my game, wouldn't you? So I was about to say, like, but even you could just do the scripts, Duncan. The scripts could be automated. Well, then who's going to read the scripts?
Who's going to read the scripts? But there's very convincing voice actors. Although one of the really fascinating things, there's an Indiana Jones game came out fairly recently, The Great Circle, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, I think, and a veteran voice actor played Indiana Jones, imitated Harrison Ford's voice, and Harrison Ford has come out and said, this is showing that you don't need AI to recreate my voice, you just need talented people. But yeah, I don't think you could use an LLM to create limitless dialogue and then have voice actors act it. You just never
in real time.
Yeah, yeah. So it's exciting to see where it goes. There's so many possibilities with games, and I don't think they're going to go. Of course, they're not going to go away. But the amount of money they cost, the amount of time they take to play, some of them are like jobs, especially your economic-based spreadsheet, pretty version of a spreadsheet.
Actual jobs, Duncan. I take it incredibly seriously. I'm turning these countries around. 1.25% reduction in interest.
Yeah. Very, very, very interesting. Thanks.
We talked about this a little bit with the future of. I can't remember what it was. Was it content? What was the one we did before?
The internet.
No. There was another one. On.
We've done so many episodes now.
We haven't, but I can't remember. We do so many podcasts outside of this one. But like, effectively, the future of personalized content. Do you know, it was going viral. That's what I'm thinking. Right. Going viral. Where the point I was making was that because everything will be so personalized to us, it's very difficult to have like a mass moment. And realistically, you're seeing that in gaming too. Mm-hmm. So if you look at just the amount, just the number of options, to your point, right? It's incredible. I want to manipulate interest rates in the 18th century. You want to race people in real time. That's just two people with very different views. And there's a full spectrum of games and activity in between that. And I'd say 5 to 10 years ago, for both of us, it would have been sort of tough, like you wouldn't have had a choice. You'd be like, no, you're going to play Battlefield 2.
Yeah,
count yourself lucky because that's the only game that's out this month. Whereas now you've got limitless options. Just go on Steam and type in interest rates, and I bet there's a game that comes up from it.
There probably is just like a spreadsheet, an automated spreadsheet where you just click run and it goes, "This is what would happen." Oh, great!
Yeah, well done. You've just won interest rate. Here's a badge.
Yeah.
But because of that, even though, we started off talking about the main studios, and I think they are in trouble. I just think the value proposition's all wrong, and I think people are pushing back on it. But the gaming industry itself has grown enormously and will continue to grow.
Yeah, I agree. And that's great for all of us. And the more accessibility that we have to those games through the different platforms that we use, the better.
I'm trying to find some stats just to make sure I'm correct that the gaming industry is growing. I feel like it must be.
I don't know, actually.
We'd know by now.
I'm sure I've read differing things. Certain studios, a lot of studios are making layoffs, but that doesn't mean that then there's also not growth in the industry. I never voted again, did I?
No, because you just put it on me every time we start off. And it's always a topic that I've spent no time thinking about. Literally, just like, hey, what do you think about games? Well, I play them. Good enough.
Ollie, you just need to take control, mate. You just need to take control and
seize power.
Tell me what to do for once. But I feel the same as you. I'm long on games, short on big live service subscription games, but I'm long and excited about smaller packaged games that deliver interesting new experiences. There's always something that you can find on Steam or through a different format like VR or whatever that will surprise you and excite you, and I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes.
Likewise. And,
you were short before, so I've convinced you. Win.
No, you haven't. I'm long on games.
End of podcast.
I was long on games overall. It's just the big studios, with the exception of Fallout 5. You bring Fallout 5 out, guys, I don't care what condition it's in, I'm buying it.
Yeah. Well, Bethesda, who make those games, are well known for their games being horrifically buggy when they're released, because that's part of the fun, isn't it?
Do you know what? It really is. It really is. There are, again, there are forums just dedicated to NPCs in Fallout 4 doing crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Just like walking along the road and blowing up or something like that.
Yeah. Well, cool. Exciting. Anybody got any thoughts on that or things that they want to ask us to discuss, topics for future podcasts? Then email us on shortfusepod@gmail.com. We've had absolutely inundated with messages since last time, so I look forward to seeing what we get. But thank you for listening. All right, cheers then. Say bye, Ollie. Oh, and I'm not telling you what to do. Do you want to say bye?
Well, I have to now. I mean, imagine if I didn't.
It'd be a bit awkward, wouldn't
it? Yeah. Goodbye, but that's my decision.
All right. See you later, everybody. Bye.
Toodles.